some transfer situations here. Let's kind of go through the latest. If Kyle Walker does leave Man City, there have been reports Achraf Hakimi could be coming from PSG to Man City. Where does that stand right now for the 24-year-old Moroccan?
Yeah, I mean, he's a player they like. I think that there are a few hurdles to overcome in terms of getting the deal over the line. But Manchester City will need to bring in another fullback if Walker leaves, and he's very much top of their list.
What would a price tag? I mean, it's got to be high. What would a potential price tag be for City on this?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it's not a deal that I'm working on for the site, so I'm not sure. I mean, PSG paid an awful lot of money for him, so it wouldn't be a cheap deal to do.
Okay, let's move on to one of probably the biggest discussion in the transfer market is Harry Kane. If and when he leaves Spurs, he's going into his last year of his deal, and Bayern seems like the suitor. PSG has come in a little bit off the top rope. It doesn't seem like they're a serious contender, but it might help Daniel Levy's negotiation situation here. Where does Kane to Bayern stand right now?
Well, Bayern have made a lot of very positive noises about this, and their kind of strategy for these big deals is to essentially contact the player, convince the player that this is the move for them, and then leak that sentiment to the press to sort of apply pressure on the selling club to say, well, look, okay, maybe we've got to do a deal because our player, even though we don't want to lose him, wants to go to Bayern. Now that sort of time-tested method works on a lot of clubs. I don't know whether it would necessarily work on Daniel Levy, and I would suspect it's probably irritated him to some extent. We all know he's a very tough negotiator. Clearly doesn't want to lose Kane, but he's in a very difficult position because he's got a year left on his contract. There is no indication at the moment that he's prepared to sign a new deal. I think Spurs are going to make some sort of fresh offer to Kane to try and convince him to see his long-term future still in North London. But I think Bayern, it's ominous for Spurs just how confident Bayern are. But at the moment, they've not paid the money. They value Kane. Spurs value Kane at 100 million. That is, a reflection of what a truly top striker he is. But again, there's only a year left on his contract, and he's 30 years of age. So I can understand why Bayern have been a little bit reluctant to meet that valuation. But if they don't get anywhere near it, this deal won't go anywhere. It's exactly the same situation, really, to some extent, as what happened with Manchester City a couple of years ago. Kane was quite keen to go to City. City thought they could get him, but they never got anywhere near the valuation, which then was pushing 120, almost 150 million pounds. So Bayern have got to show them the money, essentially, for this deal to get to progress.
Go Jerry Maguire there. The brass at Bayern have been very clear. I mean, Uli Hoeneß was just quoted saying, if he wants to come here, they laid it all out there. But we'll see if that actually happens. And Daniel Levy, anybody that's been covering this thing as you have for years, know that's probably the most shrewd negotiator out there, one of them. Let's go to Lukaku and his situation at Inter. The Inter Ultras have maligned him. They've jumped ship. They are really hurt by this desire maybe to move to Juventus. It seemed like Saudi Arabia could be in the mix. That maybe has fallen off. Like, where are we at with Lukaku and his movement? Because he's still on the Chelsea books right now.
Yeah, he is. He's not out here, though. He didn't come on the tour. I spoke to Pochettino about this yesterday. His expectation is that Lukaku will leave. So I think that's about as clear as Chelsea could be from where they stand. But the issue, of course, is where's he going to go to and who's going to pay the money. Complicating this one is also his wage. I mean, he's on about £300,000 a week, huge salary. He's going to have to take a pay cut wherever he goes. Unless he went to Saudi Arabia, of course, but he doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. He's so far resisted all overtures from at least two clubs, I believe, who've expressed an interest in taking him out there. So at the moment, there's a bit of a standoff. Chelsea are working with his representatives, Rock Nation, and his lawyer to try and resolve where he goes. Juventus are keen on him, but that depends on what happens with Vlahovic. Inter Milan, of course, is where he spent last season on loan. There's, some rather negative noises coming out of the fan base at Inter at the moment. So I think that one is complicated. So there's quite a lot to sort out. But what is clear is that Lukaku doesn't see his future at Chelsea, and Chelsea want to sell him. It's just a case of finding a buyer at the right price.
Yeah, it's a complex situation, and he's been in years now of drama around Lukaku and his movement across the continent. Let's end here in this continent here with Messi being unveiled the other night at Inter Miami. David Beckham has said there were 3.5 billion views. I think those numbers might be a little bit off, but nonetheless, though, he will make his debut Friday night. There are reports of $110,000 tickets against Cruz Azul in the League's Cup. The minimum ticket right now, if you can find online, is about $500. What was your reaction to Messi and kind of the mania sweeping Southern Florida, but also more broadly America?
Yeah, do you know what? It's incredible. I got a couple of taxis since I've been here following Chelsea in North Carolina, and both taxi drivers didn't really know anything about Chelsea, but they did know about Lionel Messi, and they were talking to me about Lionel Messi at length. They obviously saw him win the World Cup, and even though we're a long way from Miami here, it's a Messi fever really seems to have swept across the country. It's an incredible thing. It's a great thing for the league. I think it's a great thing for soccer in America. And I can't wait to see him get started. You know, I mean, if he is anything like the player that we know and saw in Qatar and at his best at Barcelona and flashes of that in Paris, he could absolutely rip this league up. So I can't wait to see him. Yeah,
we're all excited. He's obviously got his guy Sergio Busquets. Jordi Alba just got unveiled the other day too. So he's bringing in his boys. They're looking at some young talent to come around that roster. They're currently last in the MLS, but they are trying to bolster stuff around Messi Friday night, his first game.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.